Scottish refereeing is again under the spotlight after some pretty dodgy decisions, you would have to say. Dundee United's Callum Butcher was yellow carded on Sunday for an X-rated challenge on Celtic's David Turnbull. Today he was told he'll face a disciplinary panel on Thursday, and I think we know, Stephen Craigan, where it's going to go from here.
Well, this is the whole point of having the laws of the game. I understand there's little bits and pieces where they can't get involved if a yellow card's shown, but surely player safety has to come into it. I think Callum Butcher himself, looking at the tackle, will realise it was a horrendous tackle. David Turnbull has done really well not to have a serious injury after that. So player safety has to be looked at. Players must be protected. And if you're going to raise your studs and make a tackle as high as that, then you have to be punished.
There's lots of talk about VAR at the moment. A glance at a TV screen on Sunday would surely have got that Butcher decision right. But what about full-time refereeing, Craig Moore? Is that the way to go?
That's the way forward, Rob. For me, if you're going to go down VAR, it is definitely coming into the game. You need to have full-time referees. For me, that brings accountability as well. And that's something that has to be introduced. So VAR, implement it, but it does cost money. You need to do it correctly.
Yeah, just confirmation that Dundee United midfielder Callum Butcher has been charged by the Scottish FA following that challenge on David Turnbull on Sunday. Referee was Don Robertson. He booked Butcher for catching Turnbull on the shin, just to the side of the knee. Studs up, contact made, a lunge during United's 3-0 defeat at Tannadice. Butcher now issued with a fast-track notice of complaint after a panel of 3 former referees deemed the incident red card worthy. So he faces a hearing on Thursday. He just returned from a 2-match suspension. He came on as a second-half substitute against Celtic. He was only on a matter of minutes, having been sent off, of course, for that clash with Christian Ramirez of Aberdeen at Tannadice last month. A change. Now, this is interesting because we were talking on the show last night, and I was suggesting that that the decision couldn't be changed because it had been dealt with on the pitch, and that was the old rule, wasn't it?
That's what I was talking about at the start of the
yeah. But there's apparently now a change to the disciplinary rules, which means compliance officer Andrew Phillips. We just found out on the show last night who the compliance officer was. He's obviously been quiet for a while. Andrew Phillips has the power to pursue greater punishments for incidents dealt with by the match officials at the time. It does make you think back and wonder whether that Funso Ojo incident could have been reviewed. Possibly that was a yellow card that led to a red card. It was obviously, everybody agreed ultimately that was the wrong one. That one wasn't reversed. I know there was a lot of talking done about that. Aberdeen made big representations to the Scottish FA. That decision stayed where it was. But obviously in this case, they can change it. They've found a way to change it, and it will be changed. And you would imagine, Cruggs, he's going to get a pretty hefty ban this time.
Well, he is. Callum Butcher is a player who plays the game on the edge. You know, when you go in for, you watch him get in for tackles, sometimes you think, if he hadn't got the ball or he'd been a split second later, he could have been in trouble. And I think when you watch him play, that's how he is. He makes lots of tackles. He's a midfield player. He uses his body. He's always nibbling at things. When you always see him getting booked early on in a game, you think you could easily go the rest of the game. Another one I look at is Alexander Gogic of Hibs. Is another one. Alan Power, another one who they snap into tackles and they put themselves on the line. But that tackle alone has to be dealt with. We're trying to stamp out physicality and endangering flair players and players who impact games and light games up. David Turnbull certainly is that. There's ways of stopping them. That certainly isn't one way of stopping them. So I think the SFA have to make some sort of statement on this kind of tackle to say this can't happen. A 1 or 2 game ban I don't think stands enough. Something has to be done more serious to make sure these kind of tackles are eradicated from the game.
Yeah, and I mean, what he's effectively saying to the Scottish authorities is, you've just banned me for 2 games. Here's what I think of that suspension. Here's how that's affected me. Here's the discipline I'm showing now on the back of having been banned for a couple of games. He's lunging in, and with every rerun, Craig, it looked worse and worse, didn't it? And had David Turnbull's foot not moved, he was in big bother.
Yeah, well, I think for David Turnbull, obviously having his foot not stuck to the ground obviously saves him. The excessive force also, if there's any force there, that is a leg breaking challenge over the ball. And more importantly, Rob, as you touch on, he's just come back from suspension. He's just come on off the bench. And once again, he's let his teammates down. He's let his coach down. He's let the club down.
But he's also having a laugh at the authorities, isn't he?
Well, they'll be having a laugh when they go through this procedure protocol in terms of what suspensions may come, and at some stage they will set an example. Craigs, I don't know when it's going to be. Is this the one?
Yeah.
Because we had the Porteous challenge, I think at Ibrox as well, where it's over the ball. It's for me, it's a tackle when that studs go over the ball. You're putting your opponent safety at huge risk, and that needs to be cut out of the game.
You're asking for trouble. The minute you go and you raise your studs at any level over the top of the ball, I mean, that caught the inside of David Turnbull's knee. He must have known himself, I'm in trouble here, or what goes through his mind. Because it's not as if he's tackling a player who is wanting to tackle him back. He's basically a sitting duck. David Turnbull's trying to get past him, and he's just going to leave one on him. I understand going to leave one on him and trying to, trip him up, but you cannot raise your foot to the level that he did and not expect excessive punishment.
There'll be people listening who will be saying, "Oh, this is rich coming from Craig Moore and Stephen Craig." And
I was going to touch on that.
They put in a few fair old tackles over the years, but of course things have changed. The rules have changed.
Yeah, they have, and we were talking offline there as well, and we were involved in many tackles when the game was different. But again, if you're going with your studs, Rob, for me that focus was still always to get your contact on the ball. It was allowed back in those days, but nowadays it's completely not allowed, and I totally get that because again, player welfare, safety is the most important thing. But the naughty challenges are the ones that where people can go over the ball because they break legs and can end careers. Let's be honest.
What did you think about that Callum Butcher tackle? What punishment should he get when he goes before that disciplinary panel on Thursday? What do you think about VAR? Lots of talk about it being implemented, but maybe not by the sounds of it in time for the start of next season. What would it mean if it was implemented midway through next season? And what about what Craig's been talking about right at the top of the show, full-time refereeing? Would our referees be more accountable at that point? If you paid them on a full-time basis, you could expect better standards of refereeing. What do you think about any of that? Rangers at the weekend, 3-0 against Dundee. Celtic 2-0 at Tannadice. European games upcoming on Thursday. Celtic at home to Betis. Rangers in France to play Lyon. 0808 17 17 700 if you want to join the football chat. And talking about that game in France, Rangers say today, more breaking news for you, that they've been left in an almost impossible situation after a late U-turn by the French government that allows travelling fans now to attend Thursday's Europa League game in Lyon. It comes less than 24 hours. We were talking about it on the show last night after the Ibrox club, who'd been allocated around 2,200 tickets, were told away fans were not permitted at the last group game due to stretched police resources. Rangers say the situation continues to cause uncertainty and frustration, with many supporters having cancelled their flights and or accommodation. The club, having cancelled their corporate flight on Monday, which can't be rearranged, are working with travel partners to discover if they intend to provide travel to the game. So all the fans who yesterday were scrambling around looking for some sort of compensation because they'd splashed out, Craig, to go to France, are probably now trying to scrap the cancellation, see if the travel is still on, see if they can get there and get into the game. It's a complete shambles, isn't it?
Absolute disaster. But unfortunately,
For you mean?
Unfortunately, well, yeah, for me as well. I was heading out there as well. But it's a disaster. It put Rangers, I think, in a really awkward situation. Nothing to do with themselves. Obviously, the French government have come out with the rules yesterday that there was no travel, and then flipped it a day later. So, for me, really crazy situation. A lot of people having to cancel flights, cancel accommodation. Maybe the lucky ones weren't able to cancel, and therefore their bookings have been kept, and they're able to go and support the team and go and watch the game like they originally planned. But a really crazy situation.
Are you out of pocket? Do you want us to have a wee whip round for you?
I was just looking forward to the trip. I'm disappointed I can't go because
and you would have been able to see us over there as well, because we were all going to be heading over.
But you know what the bigger picture is? Initially, or the reason with the police presence is an annual event.
Yep.
So when the draw was made, the annual event was on that date. So they must have knew back then if there was going to be an issue with police or police resources, they would have known when the draw happened. It didn't just appear last week, the week before, and think, oh, we've just remembered we have this big event that we have every single year. We've had for years on end.
It's incredible, isn't it?
So that should be looked at. But then you have to look and think, if there's compensation to come from somewhere, it has to come from the stupidity of how they've dealt with the situation. I mean, I would imagine a lot of Rangers fans that have said, stuff it, no tickets, we can't get in, we're going anyway.
Yeah.
I think probably very similar to the Celtic fans when they went to Betis. They weren't allowed inside the stadium, so they were in the bars and the pubs.
Yeah.
So the Rangers fans are going to be on the streets watching the game outside when the game's gone on. So they thought, well, if they're going to come anyway, we might as well let them into the ground so they can watch the game. So it's bemusing from the first minute to the last. In fact, last week it was on. Was it Saturday? It was off, and it's back on today. It's pushing the boundaries, absolutely.
So if you've been caught up in all of that, give us a call, 0808 17 17 700. Did you try to get some money back? Have you been able to rearrange your travel? Are you still going to get to the game 2 days away from Lyon against Rangers? It's a 5:45 kickoff on Thursday, and after that Celtic play Real Betis at Celtic Park. Craig, you were at Rangers 3, Dundee 0 on Saturday. What sort of team are they going to be sending out in France?
Look, good question. Obviously, they're in terms of the group stages, they're going to progress anyway. So I think Giovanni will have an opportunity, Rob, to maybe get some minutes into players that he wants to get up to a certain level. I don't expect wholesale changes, but I think there will be an opportunity for a few to come in. Gio's done a wonderful job. It's been a long time, I think, where I've sat and watched Rangers play at home and been comfortable from first minute to the end. It was very measured. It was very controlled. A lot different in terms of the way Giovanni's looking to play with the same formation, but different changes to that formation in terms of the way he wants to go about things from Steven Gerrard's time.
And it's shades of Dick Advocaat.
Very much so. 5 players to protect, construct, build, and 5 players to go and express themselves, create goals, score goals. It just, for me, offers a lot more balance. Defenders now are first and foremost, Rob, defenders. So you're looking at, I'm not saying that Tavernier or Barisic can't get forward. It's when they arrive, it's the timing, it's picking the moment. But they're both not arriving at the same time. So there's that balance. And now in terms of the further forward players in the wider areas, which was previously the fullbacks, it's Kent, it's Hadji. It's actually attacking players in those positions. And the 2 10s have been replaced by 2 of the midfielders, because the 3 in the midfield has been 1 solo 6 and the 2 midfielders playing higher up, which is basically what the attacking players for Rangers were playing. So I look at Rangers and I think they've got more options and are more attacking at this moment in time. Most importantly, I think there's a better structure and defensively they're better organised.
But also I think players like change.
Yeah.
Players like things freshened up. That's why when you come back for pre-season, you speak to experienced managers, they always try and change something. Even if it's in around the dressing room, whether it's a different tactic or a different message the player gets. Maybe last year as a fullback you were allowed to overlap. This year you're going to, just something where players think, this is different, it's fresh. And Rangers haven't had that for 3.5 years. They've had the same system and the same message, which has been fine. It won them 1 league. It won them 1 title out of 9. And some people say the first 3 probably a little bit unjust because Brendan Rodgers' side was so strong. I get that. But they could and should have won more trophies. They were a bit one-dimensional at times, you would think. Very predictable as in how they were going to play.
Yep.
Win, lose or draw, they'd have changed the sub. Sub for sub, play the exact same role, exact same position. So what you've noticed in Giovanni van Bronckhorst's first 4 games is players playing different roles, different systems.
It's not a different system, though, Craig. It's not a different, because it's still a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
It's just players have got different roles within that formation.
But with a twist to it, which makes you think, this is different, new, I have something to learn, it's a new role, which is clearly getting the best out of the players. Wingers want to be wingers, fullbacks, of course they want to overlap and get forward, but more selective. Spot on what you're saying. So it will be interesting to see when they go to Tynecastle what it's going to be like, when they go to Celtic Park what it's going to be like, when they go to Pittodrie, when that's their next 3 away games. 3 of Rangers' traditionally toughest league games of the season they've got in the next 6 games. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of system, what kind of message he gives to the players.
And he seems to be tweaking it that little bit differently each game, Craig, depending on what he's up against.
Yeah, well, again, he manages a game. So for example, if they're comfortable in a game, then you'll see a lot of the substitutions will be attacking minded. But whereas if you potentially need to protect the game, he'll go and he'll manage that to make sure that they get the 3 points. I think again another really important thing to touch on is defensively, obviously being a lot better. Haven't been conceding goals, so therefore they're not chasing games.
It's either 1 and 4, haven't they?
3 clean sheets. So these are things that build confidence and also a great platform to go and not only win football matches, but then go and win comfortably, Robin. And that's exactly what I've seen against Dundee at the weekend. And I feel that there's actually a lot of growth still in this football team.
Well, it's not bad if you can improve the team defensively and in attack at the same time. They're more attacking menace, more solid defensively. Everyone would want that. But it's sometimes difficult to achieve both at the same time, isn't it?
In such a short space of time, considering he will have had minimal time on the training pitch. Now, you listen to Ralph Rangnick talking about after joining Manchester United.
How quickly.
And they're saying, you haven't got a lot of time. He said, there's different ways. We can do it one-on-one. We can do it in the group session. We can work with the defence. We can work in midfield. We can do video analysis. We can walk through in the pitch. We can do the tactics board. Absolutely spot on. Just because you're not on the training pitch running about, sweating and covering, you can still give players information in different ways. And all players will learn differently. I used to ask the young players, which way do they learn? Visually, is it better to see it on a tactics board? Would they rather be on a pitch and seeing it, or do they learn it from being video analysis?
Yeah. And every individual is different.
Every individual is different. So the key is how quickly you find out what is the best way for that player or that group of players to learn and take information on board. And I think that's not to say that's where the game's changed, but that's where a lot of the time goes. It's not as much on the pitch anymore. It's about how you can get the message across to your players and show them examples in video analysis and just reaffirm your message.
And with that, Rob, it normally does take time. Ralph Rangnick come out and said he was absolutely stunned or really impressed with how quickly the players adapted to what he was looking for. And that's a press that people are saying that in terms of their organised press, the lack of press that Man United have had all season. So within one game and very limited time, they'd won the ball in the opponent's half more times than they've won all season, 12 times. So good players with different information can adapt very, very quickly.
Talking football till 7 on Glasgow's Own.
The Go Radio Football Show with thetaxicentre.com. Your exclusive taxi trade savings are waiting on you. Let's go.
You're wondering how long I'm going to let that music run before I say it.
A little bit of bounce to the music.
I was actually wondering myself. Champions League is back tonight. European football, of course, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So some good sounding games tonight, but of course some of them they're all final group games, so they vary in terms of importance. Craigs, this is where you glaze over because I'm going to run through the Champions League games and then you tell me that Glentoran are playing tonight.
Okay, go ahead. It's actually Larne against Bally. No, it's not Larne. It is. It's Warren Point against.
Anyway.
Warren Point, Dungan. That's
okay,
what it is.
okay, right. Okay, we'll move on. Anyway, Craig, I'll talk to you at this bit. PSG against Bruges, Leipzig against Man City, Porto, Atletico Madrid. I'm just sorting out your viewing for later on. Milan against Liverpool, Ajax against Sporting, Borussia Dortmund, Besiktas, Real Madrid, Inter Milan. There's some really juicy games tonight, but you'll tell me, of course, which of these matter and which don't. Shakhtar Donetsk against Sheriff Tiraspol.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great games in there, but you look at PSG, Man City, they're already through, aren't they? In their groups. I was just trying to have a look at the groups there, but. Look, there's some wonderful games. There always is. Milan, Liverpool, a fantastic match. You look at the history between those two clubs, the Great Cup final.
But again, Liverpool have won 5 out of 5. The group came up earlier on that I think Milan and Porto and Atletico Madrid. That's the teams.
Yes.
Whereas I think Milan have one team is 4, 2 teams have 5 points. Liverpool have 15. So Liverpool play AC Milan. So so whoever wins in those games. So there's something on it for other teams, but not always for the teams that have qualified. And I understand people say, well, for the good of the game, you have to play your strongest team. No, well, Jurgen Klopp, for example, is going to be judged on winning the Premier League and making sure his players are fit for the weekend. So he's going to pick his team according to what he needs for games moving forward. So it's a difficult one for the managers who are in the driving seat with regards to what's going on, which means you flip it back to Rangers and Celtic on Thursday. Ange Postecoglou and Giovanni van Bronckhorst have the right to pick whatever team they like.
Yes.
Because Celtic are in Europe after Christmas in the conference and Rangers are in the Europa League after Christmas. They have so many games between now and the 2nd of January. I think after Thursday, Celtic have 7, Rangers have 6. Celtic have got a cup final. So they can't afford to run the risk with any player. So it'll be interesting to see what lineups they have on Thursday night.
Celtic in particular, with a few injuries obviously coming
Yeah.
in recent matches, Rob. But basically, out of all the Champions League groups, there's only one where there's really something at stake tonight. In terms of, I think it's.
I knew you were
it's
going to come
Group
up with
G.
the analysis of this eventually.
Group G, you're looking at Lille atop on 8 points, Salzburg 7, Seville 6, and Wolfsburg 5. So that's really the only group that there's all to play for. Everyone else can sort of like chop and change with their squads a little
But
bit.
Rangers have a very interest in this because they will play a third place team in the Champions League, won't
Yeah.
they? As well.
Yeah.
So there's something on for Scottish football tonight.
Yeah, it's the Champions League drop-down teams, isn't it, into the Europa League last 32, which is where Rangers are heading. Talking of Rangers, Rangers fan Scott is with us now. Craig Moore, Stephen Craig, and Rob McLean in the studio. And Scott, hello there.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Yeah, good,
Scott.
thanks. How are you?
Aye, not bad, yeah. I just kind of want to talk about the whole ticket cancellation and non-cancellation thing. I was booked to go to France and then it get cancelled, and obviously you get non-refundable flights and things. So I think I'm obviously not alone. But then I've been on again and we're trying to book again, so I'll probably end up missing out. I'm at 200, 300 quid in a couple weeks just before Christmas. Obviously, it's not great. So I think something needs to be done, whether it's the French government or Lyon or Rangers or someone, I think needs to take fans in consideration about reimbursing flights and accommodation, things like that.
So you've lost 200 or 300 quid already. You're not getting that back, Scott.
No, that's like flights that were cancelled as well as booking again. So that kind of, I'll add up. That's about 200, 300 quid. And I don't work a lot, and I'm still a student at uni, so that's a lot of money, basically.
It's a sore one, Craig, isn't it?
No, really, and as Scott touched on, this time of year, to be losing money at any time of year is not great. It's been a really poorly handled situation. Unfortunately for Rangers, there wasn't a great deal that they can do. But Scott, I'm sure they'll be doing their utmost to try and make sure that they can look after people like yourself and a lot of other people that have obviously made that investment to look to try and get out there and support the football club. Where that's going to come from, Rob, at this moment in time, we don't know. But hopefully, there can be some form of compensation, something that can be arranged so that the supporters certainly don't miss out, and more importantly, are not out of pocket.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about this, Craig, right at the top of the show. Who takes responsibility?
Well, it's supposed to question to Scott is, Scott, were you on a chartered flight or were you on a scheduled flight? Because you'd imagine the scheduled flight would still be going if it was going somewhere in France, or were you on a chartered flight that the club had organised?
It was a chartered thing organised by Rangers that's now been cancelled.
So,
and I don't think there's a lot of, I think I got an email saying they're trying to refund, but obviously they don't know because it's them who would have booked with the travel companies and things like that.
You'd like to think whoever booked the charter, there would be some sort of insurance for if something went
this time.
Particularly at this time, within COVID times, you'd imagine there'd be some sort of way that the fans who have got with the charter, because if you book with EasyJet or you book with Ryanair to go to Germany and get a train down or a bus down or whatever it may be, you'd like to think that would still be going ahead.
That would still be in place. So Scott, was that the 9 o'clock flight on Wednesday morning?
Yeah, it was a Thursday morning.
Oh, was it Thursday morning? Okay. Yeah.
Just for the day trip thing.
Yeah, well, I think, again, with that kind of thing, Craig, as you touch on, if it's a chartered flight and there's been obviously involvement with Rangers that have obviously facilitated that, then you would like to think that they'll come up with a solution where they can refund people that have made that investment. I don't know about the insurances and all that sort of stuff, but you're right, at this crazy moment in time, the life that we're leading, we know that changes can happen at the blink of an eyelid. So hopefully that's all in place, mate, and not an ideal situation because it would have been fantastic to get out there and support your team.
It's a ridiculous situation as well because it's all about resourcing, police resourcing in Lyon on that particular night because there's a festival ongoing.
Festival of Light it's called.
Yeah, Festival of Light. Which is
what I said earlier.
Yeah.
It's an annual event.
Yeah.
So they knew as soon as the draw was made, that game is the same time as our annual event that night or that week, whatever it may be. We may have problems. We need to flag this up ASAP to make sure that if Rangers, because if they know anything about Rangers or anything about Celtic and teams that travel, certainly Scottish teams that travel abroad in Europe, they travel in big numbers because they want to go and get away and enjoy themselves and they want to watch their team progress. And so they should have known that immediately, or that should have been flagged up somewhere rather than a week before the decision being changed twice to upset people, losing money, costs, and going that way. So that's something that, if it is that way, then surely that has to be reimbursed by the French government or somebody who's said, no, you can't go, cancel. Yeah, you can go. There has to be some way that Rangers can contact UEFA to deal with, that's Leon or the French government, whatever it may be, because that can't be right that fans just lose money.
Yeah. Let's hope, Scott, you end up getting something of that back, some sort of compensation, because as you say at this time of year, particularly, that's a sore one. Would it cheer you up at all to talk about Giovanni van Bronckhorst and the start he's got off to as Rangers manager?
Yeah, I think that cheer me up a bit, because I think it's, from what I've obviously only 4 games, and obviously the Hibs game was a penalty that was. I wouldn't say it was 100% penalty. I think it was a penalty, but obviously performance wasn't great. But I still think I've seen more from our Gio team than I did from the rest of the season, our Gerrard team. And I think, to be honest, I wasn't 100% saying we'd win the league under Gerrard, but I think I'm a lot more confident with Gio in the dugout than I was with Gerrard.
Do you agree with that, Craig?
Look, again, it's don't want to take away from what Steven Gerrard achieved at the football club. Because his remit was very clear, and he was successful in the work that he carried out. Not often in football is a win-win situation, but I believe that this was the situation. The Rangers had a manager that there was speculation all the time about, who eventually was going to end up down south. That has happened. Rangers were compensated, and I believe that Rangers have now got another manager who has a fantastic future ahead of him, who's very astute, who's already shown what a really good job he can do, Rob. I think Rangers are in a position where they can progress this squad once again. So, like Scott, like you touched on there, mate, I was starting to have my doubts. I felt a real flatness.
Had it gone stale?
Yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. It had gone very, very flat. Craig's touched on it earlier on in terms about the formation and teams, what they were expecting.
Too predictable.
Far too predictable. And I think that this change has come at exactly the right time. And I expect bigger and better things to come from Rangers now.
Now, the team had clearly lost an edge. There's no doubt about it. And you can talk about, it'll come back, we'll win a game, we'll do this. And, Giovanni van Bronckhorst has brought an edge back to the team. There's no doubt about it. And we said earlier, a new manager does that. You only have to look at Steven Gerrard's impact at Aston Villa.
Yep.
They had lost 5 in a row, looked dead in their feet, nothing in them. They've suddenly won 3 out of 4 since they went. They lost, and the game they lost was 2-1 against Man City. Yeah. So it's amazing how just new managers can come in and just suddenly change the mindset. People who didn't think they had a hope of playing suddenly have a hope of playing. They're energised again. The fans get up. So sometimes things happen for a reason, and the reason Steven Gerrard left because he was a bit flat. Even his interviews, he was a bit edgy on his interviews with regards to answers and questions. He wasn't content. The players looked a little bit bored, I've said previously. I thought it was like, here we go again. So things turn around, and it's amazing what kind of response you can get.
What is it you see on the pitch, Scott, at the moment that makes you very sure that Rangers are heading for another title?
I think it's just what the guys touched on it, but it's different. It's different, but like good different, because as they said, it was getting stale. If I can tell how we're going to play every game, pretty sure every single manager in the Premiership could tell how we were going to play. It was 4-3-3, wingers inside, fullback width, and it's easy to stop that if you know what's going to happen. So I think we've seen fullbacks not be as attacking, apart from maybe Tav, because Hadji doesn't have the pace to be an out-and-out winger. But I think we've seen Barisic. I think Barisic's best performance in the Rangers jersey for a long time was just at the weekend there. I thought he was probably the best player in the park. And Joe Aribo in that 10 role was just gone to a different level. He's probably my Rangers player of the season so far. And I think that momentum from a new manager bounce will push us on. And I think Hearts away, is it Hearts away this weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Gio's. I think that's a very tough game, because Tynecastle's always a tough place to go. We get beat in the cup when they just get relegated, or just about to get relegated. So Tynecastle away is always tough, and if we can go there and get 3 points, then I think it's massive for Gio and for the team to get 2 wins from 5 games, both at Easter Road and Tynecastle.
Joe Aribo, Craig, is the one Barry Ferguson picks out consistently at the moment as the player he would least like to lose. Were Rangers to get rid of anybody in the transfer window?
Look, for me, I just feel that in this business, every player has a price, Rob, and potentially you could lose any of the players. I wouldn't be totally devastated, if I'm honest, that any player at Rangers moved on if it was the right business opportunity for the football club. I understand what Barry's saying about Aribo in terms of he is a great talent. I still think there's a lot better to come from Aribo. Technically very good. Physically, he's a great athlete. He very rarely loses the ball in tight areas. I still think he can execute better. But for me, if you are to lose a player, as long as the club are then in a position, which I believe they would be, to reinvest to bring somebody better in, I don't have an issue with any player leaving if it's the right thing for the club.
We were saying on the show last night as well that there was that very impressive succession plan when Steven Gerrard went. It clicked into gear very quickly. It was obviously Giovanni van Bronckhorst was the name on everyone's lips immediately, and it happened very quickly, didn't it? And you would imagine, Craigs, that player-wise there would be that same succession plan for any position, be it Connor Goldson or be it Joe Aribo or be it anyone else who disappeared in January.
Well, there has to be, because Rangers have made it known for a while that they may have to sell one or two. That is their business model. So when you may have to sell one or two of your best players, you have to have a plan B of who you're going to bring in or who's going to fill that gap or fill that void. It either has to come from below, from the youth players or the academy coming up, or you maybe have to go out and invest a little bit more. You have to look at free transfers, and that's what the likes of Ross Wilson has done. He's brought in Scott Wright. I still think there's an awful lot more to come from Scott Wright. He's brought in Jack Simpson, who really hasn't fitted in at the minute. No. Unfortunately. But Joe Aribo was probably in before Ross Wilson came in, but he came in a free transfer. So there's ways of doing it, and there's money you have to spend. But you'd like to think that Rangers have their finger on the pulse, as will Celtic. These clubs will understand if clubs come calling and offer big money, the club probably have to accept, and they have to move on. But I think they want to try and hold them, or try and get as best value as they possibly can. I think that's the key to it.
Scott, do you see Celtic as much more of a threat at the moment in the title race than you would have done right at the start of the season?
Yeah, I think everyone does. I think you look at players like, I don't like praising them, but you look at players like your Kyogos, Jota. I think that Abada's, he's hot and cold, but when he's on it, I think he's a good player. Callum McGregor, obviously, I think he's stepped up a different level. I still think their defence is questionable. I think Starfelt he's came on to a game recently, but I still think he's a bit lightweight for Scottish football. I think Carter Vickers is a good player, but he'll be away in the summer. I don't think they'll get him permanently. So yeah, I think from Celtic, I think it's definitely more of a challenge than I thought we were going to get. But I do think, I was just on touching on what they were talking about, the transfer window as well. I think the only player that's been linked to a move that I would probably let go, it's probably a shock to you, but it's probably Morelos. Because I think Roof, if you take Morelos out and put Roof in, I don't think there's much of a difference. I think under Gerrard there would have been, because he drops deep, likes to play that kind of thing that Gerrard liked him to do. I think Gio looks for a penalty box striker, and I think Roof's a much better finisher than Morelos. And I think that's what Gio's looking for in a striker more than anything. And I think we take good money for Morelos as well.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, I wouldn't have any concerns if any player come January, a transfer come in and it was of a value that Rangers felt they couldn't refuse, Rob, because I think that all the players are replaceable. I really do. The speculation around about Patterson, look, great player, great potential, still not played a huge number of games. There may come a time, and it might even be this window, where he's like that, knocking on the door saying, I need to be playing, I'm not happy. As long as Rangers then go and get the right money for the kid, no issue with it at all. Morelos, if Morelos was to kick on and do his business elsewhere, no surprise. I believe that there's players there. As Scott, you've touched on Roof. I also believe Sakala is going to grow and every game, every goal, more and more confidence from him. So I'm not overly concerned about the transfer window, any potential players departing, because I'm confident that Rangers will be in a position. Craig's touched on it. Ross Wilson, I think, has done a fantastic job. He will have 3-4 potential players in every possible position and be ready to strike if that moment is needed.
I'm overly concerned about Scott's bank account. I'm hoping he gets some money back after his after your travel drama. But hopefully you find your way there eventually, and you enjoy it on Thursday night, Scott.
All right, cheers, guys.
All the best.
Cheers, Scott.
Cheers.
Cheers.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Your exclusive taxi trade savings are waiting on you. Let's go.
Yeah, Tuesday's Go Radio Football Show. Craig Moore, Stephen Craigan, Rob McLean at your service. 0808 17 17 700. If you want to join us, have some football chat, make some allegations. No, don't do that. Voice your opinion, ask some questions, get involved basically with the football chat. We do it night after night. Tonight, Morton against Inverness, Cally Thistle, Queen of the South against Cove Rangers. A couple of Scottish Cup third round replays, and the breaking news just before we came on air was that Callum Butcher, who was yellow carded at Tannadice on Sunday for that challenger David Turnbull, he is going to face a Scottish FA disciplinary panel on Thursday. There's no doubt that's going to be going through a colour change, that card, from yellow to red. And having just come back from a 2-game ban, you would imagine it's going to be a pretty stiff suspension he is going to face when Scottish football disciplinarians finally get it right. It was an atrocious challenge in a game that finished 3-0 Celtic and could have been just about anything scoreline wise. Celtic were so superior. It could have been something like 7 or 8 had they taken all their chances in that game. Let's speak to Sean, who's a Celtic fan. Hi, Sean.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey, Sean.
We're well. What's on your mind? I guess you'll be pleased with that news, Sean, that Callum Butcher is going to get his comeuppance, if that be the right phrase.
No, definitely, yeah. But I'm just wondering, on the other hand, when is the referee going to face a tribunal?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah,
in my opinion, a player has a moment of stupidity. It's a red card. He gets a 3-match ban. A referee misses something blatant that could seriously have broken Turnbull's legs, and all he'll get is a slap in the wrist. And you can just referee a top-flight game. He should be demoted and probably referee the juniors for the next couple of weeks.
The only reason I could think of at the time was that he was unsighted, that his line of sight, he didn't see the severity of the challenge. But what I would quickly add to that is there's an assistant on that side who must have been close to the halfway line, because that's where the ball was, and the fourth official was there as well. So I think, I'm not sure if I would blame Don Robertson until I knew the facts as to whether he did have a view of it. But Craigs, you would have to think that one or two of his officials there could have helped him out.
And they're a team of 4 for a reason, so they can miss minimal incidents. And that was a major one, right in front of both dugouts. So both sets of players, or subs and managers, were looking right at it. You're right, the referee, the fourth official, looking right at it. The referee's assistant on the ball. And that's where the referee, if there's such commotion around the tackle, which there clearly was, I think that's where he has to take a breath. And rather than going for a yellow card, think, hold on a minute, something's going on. I've missed something. I couldn't see it properly. Speak to the fourth official. Speak to the assistant. Did you see anything? I'm not. I just saw somebody going for the ball, and it's clearly a foul. How bad a foul was it? And the fourth official says, well, do you know what? He caught him high. The referee's assistant says he caught him high. Right. So you agreed it's a red card. It's a red card. There you go. Rather than just going yellow without even thinking about it. Because if he's given a yellow card, Rob, as quick as he did, that tells me that he saw something. What he saw, I don't know. But to be as quick with the yellow card tells you that he needed a little bit of help. And clearly the fourth official and the referee's assistant has to get involved. That's why there's 4 of them, to try and cover as many aspects as they possibly can.
And I need a little bit of time. You've got to take that time. I think Craig's is a really good point in terms of just taking that little bit of extra time, take a breath, right? Let things breathe a little bit. Obviously make sure that there's no any aggression between the players. You stop that first and foremost, and you can have that chat and come to the right decision, because I think anybody that's seen that tackle there's been no doubt. You know what I mean? So I think if you had that time, if he takes that time, if he then has those conversations, they come up with the right decision. Now, if he gets that red card and gets the right decision, the suspension, Rob, that we're talking about, or you're talking about, in terms of setting a benchmark or a standard to stop these kind of tackles, we would still be in the same situation, because we'd be waiting on a decision how long that suspension would be for.
Yeah. Well, Don Robertson needed help Sean, but Celtic didn't need any help on Sunday. They were absolutely magnificent, weren't they? And I mean, what do you reckon that score could have been if they snapped up all their chances?
It's the famous last words in a lot of games. If we just take our chances, it could have easily been 6-7, and that's not an exaggeration.
No,
it could easily have maybe even been double figures. We were absolutely excellent. I think it's the most complete 90 minutes I think Celtic have had this season. They've had spells and games with it. In the Betis game away at Easter Road, it was a good 45 minutes, and then there was a dip. I felt as if that was a full, complete 90 minutes of total domination. I thought they were excellent.
And you looked at the
first to the last minute.
Yeah, I know. And you looked at the team sheet before, and you thought, oh no, Jota, who's maybe been Scottish football's best player in the last 6 weeks. No, Tony Ralston, who's been a constant in the team. You know, scoring goals, creating goals, just being a big part of what Celtic have been doing. And you thought, I wonder how Celtic are going to be here today. But actually, those two were not required. It was Craig. No. It was an exhilarating performance.
I thought, Sean, to be honest, I thought it was potentially a banana skin for Celtic, but the way that the way that they responded, because you know what it's like when you're playing the Sunday after Rangers got their result on Saturday. There is that little bit of pressure to go out and get your result. A couple of injuries, I think everybody was thinking that kind of, it's going to affect the strength of our team. But to go and be as convincing as what Celtic were on that particular day was fantastic. Sean, I want to ask you a question. The Wizard of Oz, Tommy Rogic.
Oh, I knew you were going to get into this.
Come on, talk me through him. What's your thoughts on Tommy Rogic?
Simply sensational. The man plays in his slippers. That's what I can say. That goal at the weekend there, Diego Maradona would have applauded that. That was sensational. I don't know. There was people writing him off in the last number of years saying he could never play. He could only play 60 minutes.
Yep.
He's playing 90 minutes back to back, week in, week out, and he's getting better week in, week out.
Let's have a listen to Ange talking about him here.
Yeah, brilliant. I do know him well, and he's one of these special footballers where when the ball goes to him, I think everyone just stops and sees what he's going to do, because you want to be paying attention. That's not the time to be looking down on your phone or taking a drink. You want to stop everything you're doing, and pleased he got his goal today. He's probably, that's the area he's let himself down a little bit so far this year. He's had some good opportunities, so I'm pleased he got the reward.
Yeah, he's got his goal, Craigs, and it's got to be on the list for goal of the season, hasn't it already?
Yeah, I mean, he's now got a manager who understands him and can get the best out of him. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay Ange Postecoglou, because Tom Rogic was one of those players where Sean was saying, where, he can't do this, he can't do that. Whereas Ange Postecoglou is focused on what he can do, how he can impact the game. And I think Sunday showed the responsibility that the players are taking. They realised that one of their key players, Jota, was missing. So it needed the rest of them just to up their game a little bit in the final third, with their creativity and their work rate and their passes. And there's no doubt Turnbull and Rogic stepped up. McGregor stepped up. Kyogo was dynamic as he ever is. I said previously, I think Tom Rogic makes players around him better because he's always looking to take the ball. He's always got time in the ball. Yep. He's just, it's natural for him. He wants to go forward. Playing back the way isn't in his repertoire. He thinks, no, I'm going forward. I want to hurt the opposition. And it must be great for forwards to make runs. It must be great for David Turnbull to get himself into the forward area, because he knows he's going to find him. And I said it last week, Rob, the amount of times that Turnbull passes to Rogic passes to Furuhashi passes back to Turnbull, because they trust each other. They sense they're good players. They know top-class players know top-class players. And that trio, certainly at the weekend, were bang at it. And I think when Turnbull and Rogic are at it, there's no one in this country will stop that duo going forward. So that's why the Old Firm game come the 2nd of January is going to be so intriguing, because we're talking about Rangers being well structured now under Giovanni van Bronckhorst and hard to beat. Celtic are a different level from what they were at Ibrox early in the season. This is going to be an absolute classic, but Tom Rogic is a star player.
And I think Sean Callum McGregor's gone to a new level as well, hasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. The man is an absolute Rolls Royce. He's getting better week in, week out, not just as a player. I feel as if he's took that captain's role and made it his own. He's been absolutely sensational. He doesn't even break sweat half the time. He's been excellent, and he's so under the radar as well. You wouldn't look at a game with Callum McGregor and pinpoint things that he does. He just keeps the game ticking along nicely. It's just he's a joy to watch. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking on the show last night about, it's almost like he's emerged from the shadow of Scott Brown to a certain extent, and he's embracing the captaincy, Craig. And Callum McGregor is a magnificent midfielder at the moment.
I think he's been absolutely brilliant this season. For a player that has played so much football, and I think, talking about the back end of last season, we're saying that this boy needs a rest. This boy needs a rest, the amount of football that he's played. But all of a sudden, he's, under Ange Postecoglou, taken a new lease of life. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the captain's armband means a lot to him. And he's doing an amazing job. His energy, and when the team has needed a lift for whatever reason in certain games, it's maybe fallen a little bit flat, he's been that man that has brought the performance and the result to life. So, look, he's been incredible. And I'm also really, really pleased. I didn't go back to my Aussie mate, Tommy. I'm really, really pleased for him because I used to laugh when people say he's a 60-minute player. Mm. I think I've said it loads of times on the radio. The boy can play 90 minutes. There's no doubt in that. His ability to score goals, to create goals, to be a constant threat, we've all seen. So I'm just delighted that he's actually now knocking out those minutes because I feel as if he deserves that because he was pigeonholed as a 60-minute player. Mm-hmm.
Celtic are serious title contenders and they are playing some pretty impressive football at the moment. Sean, thanks for calling.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Cheers. 60 minutes of football chat under our belts. Another 60 to go.
The Go Radio Football Show with thetaxicentre.com. Your exclusive taxi trade savings are waiting on you. Let's go.
Champions League night, and it hasn't taken Kylian Mbappe long to have an impact. He has just scored his 30th Champions League goal. He's become the youngest player to reach that milestone in the competition's history. He is 22 years old and 352 days, so he's got a birthday coming up shortly. But he's already scored a couple tonight in the Champions League. And that against Club Brugge. I hope Jack Hendry's not featuring tonight for Bruges because that's 2 goals in the first 10 minutes for Mbappe. He is playing.
Yeah, he's playing, yeah.
So PSG 2 up and Leipzig 0, Manchester City 0 is the other game in Group A, which is currently underway. Some juicy ties coming up tonight. Porto, Atletico Madrid, Milan, Liverpool. Ajax, Sporting, Real Madrid, Inter Milan looks a cracker as well. Although, of course, in some groups, it's all pretty much done and dusted. For Rangers and Celtic, European football coming up later in the week. It's Thursday for Rangers in France to play Lyon. As of today, fans allowed to go to that game. Yesterday they weren't. It's total confusion and it's pretty costly for some of them as well, as we've already heard in the show. Celtic against Real Betis, and that is an 8 o'clock kick-off at Celtic Park on Thursday night. And let's talk to David in Dunfermline. David, hi there.
Hi Rob, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. And you're through to Craig Moore as well, and I know you're a big fan.
No, I wouldn't go that far, Rob. I'm a Celtic fan myself. And it was interesting listening to the panel talking about the Butcher's tackle at the weekend on David Turnbull.
Yeah.
I've got to say, Craig Moore, that would be an average tackle for Craig Moore when he was in his pomp. He was one of the dirtiest players that I've ever seen in my life.
We've got Stephen Craigan in the studio as well, and
I was fair and honest. By the way, David, I agree with you. Craig Moore was an absolute animal.
He was.
David, I tell you what, one of my first experiences in an Old Firm game. Remember Tosh McKinley?
Oh yeah, very well.
He nearly broke my leg. He nearly broke my leg, and I thought, you know what, that's not going to happen again. And I got to try and look after myself. But I don't think I was a dirty player, mate. Come on.
You were, Craig, you were definitely a dirty player. Maybe you weren't before you joined Rangers, but you were certainly dirty when you played for Rangers. But that's just what happens when you sign for them. You know, you just you get into the old John Gregg, Hurlock sort of ethos, and you were.
So tell me, this was retribution taken against Tosh McKinley then?
I think, to be fair, I probably shared a point with Tosh McKinley a couple of years later.
He said it took him 2 years, but he got him
after the game, and we might have got a little bit back, and we had a laugh and a beer a couple of years later.
So it wasn't until you didn't tell Tosh to put the nut in Henrik then, did you? It wasn't you on the bus.
No, I was struggling at times to get close enough to Henrik, wasn't I?
Weren't we all?
No, I was flabbergasted to hear Craig Moore talking about anybody's challenges. But talking about Henrik, I was just going to say, do you think Giovanni van Bronckhorst is obviously a good friend of Henrik?
Yeah.
They go back a long way, so he's obviously a good guy if he's a pal of Henrik's. Do you think he's got what it takes to win in Scotland? Against Ange?
I do, David. And I'll tell you why, because I've obviously been in the same dressing room as Gio. I've seen him as a player he was always very sure of himself. He had that confidence, like many of the Dutch players and coaches have. He had that
arrogance.
Borderline. Yeah, he had that in spades. I think that his pathway in coaching and the success that he had in Feyenoord, he's probably continual learning while waiting for the next opportunity. I see him coming in and being very, very similar to the likes of a Dick Advocaat, where he makes things very, very simple in terms of the structure, in terms of the way that they play. Everyone is clear on their roles. And I've seen that very, very early. Do I think that Giovanni can go and obviously win trophies and multiple trophies at Rangers? I believe he can. Do I think that Ange Postecoglou is going to be in there giving it a red-hot crack and being close and certainly having an opportunity to lift titles, a cup just around the corner? Yeah, I think there will be chances for Ange as well. But at this moment in time, I still feel that Rangers probably have a deeper squad, and I certainly don't feel that they'll go backwards in terms of the transition of management and Gio coming in just now.
You don't think once you get to the January, the transfer market opening up, they're going to lose a couple of key players, and it's how he's going to be able to handle that?
But the thing is, so for example, if
Celtic are building, you know, I mean, we're talking about Celtic are talking about bringing in guys. You don't hear about Rangers bringing in anybody. It's just about who's going to leave.
Oh, but the benefit is,
I think once the pressure hits Gio, he's a nice guy, but I worry about him.
Yeah, but you're saying, so in terms of the Celtic being in a position, Ange has brought some great signings in and will look to obviously strengthen maybe the Japanese market is where we're, sort of like, I guess, thinking that he's going to go. But if Rangers lose a couple of players, let's not forget that the players that would then come in would be players that Giovanni van Bronckhorst knows, trusts and has worked with. So I don't see that as a negative. I actually see that as a positive.
But the skin, it's only going to be free transfers.
If Rangers sell players, they'll buy players.
And there's also the bonanza waiting for the league winners at the end of the season as well. If you're willing to press the gamble button, there could be 40 million coming your way, which as a game, even at Rangers and Celtic's level, that's a game changer when you're guaranteed that sort of cash, David. Yeah. How much are you How much are you liking, David, what you're watching from Celtic at the moment?
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, the football is absolutely amazing. You watch it on Sunday there, and even against Hearts. For about 60 minutes, it's amazing football. So just a couple of additions, and then to strengthen the squad, you're losing guys like Jota, Anthony Ralston. So if we can just build that squad up more, and the players have all bought in, I think it's amazing what you've done to come in so soon and to turn it around from where we were. I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought Neil Lennon did a great job, come in, steady the ship, won the quadruple treble, but for Ange to come in, I think he's done an amazing job. And he's got a good persona, great in the media. So it's all good. So here we go. It's a title race, definitely.
David, I always think that the January window can be difficult to really add top quality because good sides don't normally let their best players go in January. Sometimes players are coming back from injury. Maybe they haven't been in the side of the club, so that's where Ange has to be careful, doesn't it? He has to get players in who can enhance the first 11 as opposed to just players who will be 15th and 16th man.
Yeah, you're right, Stephen. But in fact, Celtic don't buy top players though. They don't. They're not in that market for the top players. It's
but I'm talking about someone who will improve your first 11. Who comes in and improves your first 11.
They'll get that. They'll get that from the likes of Japanese league. Or the lower European leagues, they're not going to get guys from Spain, Italy, France, Germany. So But for these leagues, it's guys that want to come over and put themselves in the shop window, and playing in European football. And I'll tell you another thing, we'll go up there and be the first ever winners of the Conference Cup. The Conference
that's possible, and it would be a great situation to potentially win. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. David, listen, I tell you why. I tell you why that the Japanese market's a good market. I mean, obvious reasons. Ange's work there, knows the players, right?
Yes.
Craig's touched on in terms of how important it is that players come in January, which is not normally a big transfer window. No. Japanese play calendar year, so their season's finished. Right. So in terms of their situation, maybe a 10-day break, they're ready to go. They're ready to go, and that's really, really important when you come into a new club in that January window. I think that's why that's why it is an attractive market for Ange and for Celtic.
And at least one of the 3 Japanese players who's been mentioned recently, I think, is out of contract in February. So
is it Maeda?
Yeah. So that sounds like a deal that can be done in January.
Because
I'll be honest with you, Craig. I don't follow Japanese football that closely.
Yep.
I'm more into Chinese football, but you'll obviously know the Japanese market.
Yep.
Are these guys good?
Mate, they're very good. They're very good. And I tell you, look, there's a couple of things. Very reasonable market in terms of it's not big money. You're talking about $2-3 million transfer fees. So the players are kind of a similar budget. Technically amazing. And they're really good in dressing rooms because they live for football. Obviously, culture is a change and a bit of a difference for them. But if any other Japanese players come over, they've got Kyogo there, so they've got that opportunity to settle and to settle quickly. But technically, beautiful players.
Brilliant. Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear you say that, Craig. I know you're a classic Celtic man. It's just you're unfortunate that you get signed by Rangers. But hey, that's good. Good to hear you being so positive about the pick.
What you would say about Kyogo being here, he's raised the bar. So any Japanese player coming in, people think, I wonder is he as good as him? So expectations may be a little bit higher. That's probably the downside of being the second or third Japanese player to join Celtic. However, it's opening the door to a market which probably, whether it's European teams, certainly Scottish teams have never really exploited. I know Nakamura. But,
that's the only one I can think of.
And now you would think the other clubs would start thinking, okay, well, let's have a look over there. Let's have a nibble and let's get more scouting systems going over there rather than just the European League. And that is the bonus of bringing in a manager who has worked there and knows players and knows which players suit how he wants to play, which is more important than anything. So that's why, it could be a crucial window.
Yeah. I think another name that's on the tip of everyone's tongue at the moment is Jota, isn't it? I mean, he's out injured and he's going to be out for a little while by the sounds of it. It's a hamstring. And Celtic are really going to miss him because he's been so good recently. But it seems, just listening to what's happening around Craig at the moment, it does sound as if there is the opportunity maybe in January of getting this loan deal turned into a permanent one at that $6.5 million figure, which actually, as time has gone by, seems better and better value.
Yeah, well, again, look, these kind of things would have been in place even with the loan deal being in place, Rob. So there would have been a loan with an option to buy. And now Celtic will have that option. I'm pretty sure there's not a time frame on that. That's something that they can really take their time with. I know everyone wants to see the business done and
Craig,
done now.
Because you're working on the agency side, so I'm butting in, but I want to say, just because Celtic have that fee in their loan deal, it's not a foregone conclusion that Jota will become a Celtic player, because if he says no, I don't want to go there, then it doesn't matter what fee Celtic have agreed. Is that right? Then the deal doesn't go through.
Yeah, the player always has the option to decide where he wants to end up. So that is a possibility.
So just for the ones who think, it's a foregone conclusion, $6.5 million, he's a Celtic player. If we decide, no, the full package has to be agreed.
Everyone needs to be to be in agreement on that. And obviously Jota's come in and really loved his time here in Scotland. I think he's probably, he's found his passion, his love for it. Celtic and Ange have made him feel very, very welcome. He's a key player at this football club, which is always important because players like to feel good. So the option is there. The option is there for Celtic, first and foremost, before any other club.
Yeah.
They can't get gazumped. You know what I mean?
No.
They can't have somebody then coming and outbidding them, all sorts of stuff, because they will be protected.
I did see the suggestion today as well that some Benfica fans are beginning to say, wait a minute, do we not have the first option to actually bring him back here? Because they're looking at what he's doing. And I know Benfica is a club full of talent, and that's the reason they can allow somebody like Jota to go out on loan. But as time goes by, David, you must be desperate to get that deal made into a permanent one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll be honest with you, I didn't fancy him at first when I seen him. I thought maybe he was a bit of a fan dancer. I just didn't see, because we've had so many guys come in on loan and it just didn't work out. But he's a real deal.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So if they've got the agreement in place where they can buy him for $6.5 million, if he wants to stay, go and spend the money, because if you get 2 or 3 years out of him, he's only 22?
Yeah.
21, 22.
22,
He's not a
yeah.
young guy. So,
Good age.
So,
David, I think that also would send a message to you as a Celtic fan and the other Celtic fans that this board and this manager and the club at this moment in time mean business. If you could get that done in January, I think that would send such a positive vibe flushing through the club.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, pardon the pun, but you've got to have faith.
Oh, very good, very good. You Jota have faith, yeah.
Really like that.
So
Very
no,
good.
I would send a message about. No, it's all good for the tick.
I mean, midfield to front, they just are looking at a really good combination at the moment. It's going to be a fascinating title race, you would imagine, looking at it right here, right now, Craig.
I think, sorry, David, you're right, Rob. I think we do have a title race. There's no doubt about that. I've been saying it for a long time this season, because I know the energy, the desire, the hunger, and the improvement that Ange was going to bring to Celtic. He's brought that, probably a lot quicker than people could have imagined, and he's put themselves in a really good position. They will strengthen in January, and the Celtic supporters will be excited about that, about who those players may or may not be. David, but I'm interested to ask you, my one concern still for Celtic is if anything was to happen to Joe Hart.
Yes, that's right. So he has been, although he's a great shot stopper. He is a great shot stopper, but he did it again at the weekend. The ball with his feet. What's a professional footballer? It's just like he has a nosebleed when the ball's coming at him. How can that be? You've seen it when he kicked the ball and nearly passed it to D9. I just don't get that at all. But as in terms of a shot stopper, he's phenomenal. But how often? It's not often that goalkeepers get injured, though, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. So that's just like I said. My only concern would be that if anything was to happen, and of course you don't want anything to happen to play. Hopefully, stays fit and healthy throughout the season. But that backup case scenario for Celtic is not a strong one, in my opinion.
No, I know. Maybe. But I mean, who does have a great backup goalkeeper? You know what I mean? There's not many teams that have that, and I don't know. I hadn't even crossed my mind, Craig. So you've always got your blue tinted glasses on. You're struggling to come up with.
I can't believe he was crossing his fingers there as well.
Trying to make sure you're going to have a sleepless night tonight, yeah?
Jeez. No, I haven't even thought about it. But listen, it was. The signs are positive. But Craig, can I ask you? You obviously know Ange in the Australian football better than anybody. I mean, was it one league title he won?
No,
in Japan.
It was one league title, yeah. It was one league title
but,
that he won in Japan, which was incredible, to be honest, David, because his first season, he finished 13th. And the second season, they went on and played, obviously, amazing football and won the J-League, which was an enormous task, an enormous job.
Right.
Brilliant.
Was it? Right. I know you're an Aussie and you all stick together, but
Mate, we do because we like to see them do well.
Of course you do.
You know, no matter where they are. Obviously, a bit difficult for me in terms of Ange being at Celtic because I want him to do really well and still come second. But that's you can understand. You can understand that. But no, I want to see all the Australians, obviously, players and coaches do really well because it for me gives then more people in the country the opportunity to come out and do well in other countries.
Yeah, he's handled himself absolutely exemplary so far. Is there a downside to him at all? Is there? Is there something we've not seen about how this guy's not been snapped up before?
You know what? It's hard to criticise Ange and say the downside is he wants to play the beautiful game. He loves it. You see the way that he wants to play. It's an attacking brand of football, and it's positive and it's forward and it's great. Is there a downside? Yeah, unfortunately, there's a not so beautiful side of football that sometimes is important also. And Ange is probably not in love with that side of the game.
Right. Yeah, just whatever it takes to win and just changing his system and all that type of stuff. You know?
He loves to stick at playing football in a positive way, being creative, being attacking. He doesn't like to manage games out as much where it becomes a little bit boring for the supporter.
David, everything you've always wanted to know about Ange Postecoglou, but were afraid to ask, and loaded there by Craig Moore. Good to have you on the show.
No worries, Rob. All the best, guys.
All the best. Cheers.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Your exclusive taxi trade savings are waiting on you. Let's go.
Good to have David from Dunfermline on the show, and he was finding out a little bit more about Ange Postecoglou. Talking of whom, Greg Taylor was on the media conference duties for Celtic today, made his return at Tannadice on Sunday. He was out injured for nearly 3 months, but he slotted in pretty seamlessly, did well. And he's been talking today about the manager.
The manager's been different class since he came in, and especially for myself, it's been a new way of learning to play and one I've really enjoyed. Being on the sidelines, there's nothing worse, but thankfully the boys have put in a good run when I've been out injured, and it was nice to continue that when I joined again on Sunday.
And of course, he came off after maybe about 70 minutes. Celtic will be protective of him because he's been out for so long. Liam Scales came on, and what a day, Craigs, it was for Liam Scales to come off the bench. Premiership debut, first goal.
Yeah, and being from Dublin, being a Celtic supporter, you can imagine that would have been the dream of many young boys growing up in Dublin, was getting the opportunity, first of all, to play for Celtic, but then to get the chance to score for them. Certainly on social media, there's a lot of congratulatory messages coming through to him from Shamrock Rovers, his former club. So it's nice to see that there's players can still come across the water. Messi's got a goal for Club Brugge. Poor Jack Hendry, he's up against Mbappe and Messi tonight, and he's getting beat 3-0 after 38 minutes. But and you could tell by the celebrations of Liam Scales how much it meant to him. But just touching on Greg Taylor, the one thing about Greg Taylor, he's very reliant. He certainly had his detractors since he went to Celtic. People have been critical of his game, but I think he signed his 1 year option, so he's got a contract till 2025. So Ange Postecoglou obviously likes what he sees. He wants his fullbacks to be energetic. He wants them to be brave. He wants them to be fully committed. And I think Greg Taylor gives you all of that, Rob. Are you going to go out and get a better left back in January that can replace Greg Taylor or replace Juranovic? Probably not. For the money you'll have available for left back, I don't think you'll get much better at this time of year. Maybe in the summer things change and they want to look onto it. But Greg Taylor always gives his all in the game. He enjoys his football. He doesn't shy away. He gets forward when he possibly can. He has limitations with what he can do with regards to pass fullbacks, whatever have you. But when he has a player, certainly when Jota comes back, he won't need the overlap. You just give him the ball and let him go and do his stuff. So I'm glad to see he's back fit and back in the squad.
And he was talking today about that transfer speculation as well, because it has been quite strong on Rio Hatate that, and he is a left back, and it does sound as if he could well be coming Celtic's way next month.
There's no time to check what's been said. I know we'll be linked with a number of players. Some will be true, some will be false. It's part and parcel of the game. We do look forward to having extra reinforcements. We've got a strong squad as it is. There's a lot of boys pushing to play, as there is already in the building. So if we're adding to that, there's going to be even more competition.
It's going to be interesting to see how many players do come in, because Celtic need backup. They need to strengthen the squad, but also there's a danger, isn't there, in cutting off the pathway for young players to come through to the first team. I mean, Adam Montgomery's had a fair old taste of it this season. Now, if they've got Hatate at left back and Taylor, and they've got Juranovic and Ralston on the other side, where the opportunities for somebody like Montgomery might be few and far between.
Yeah, but again, they'll continue to integrate into that first team squad and be used when they're needed to keep their development going, Rob. I mean, Ange and the Celtic supporters, It's trying to get that balancing act, isn't it? It's trying to be able to develop those younger players coming through at the same time to play the brand of football that he wants to play and win football matches and with a view to try and win the title. That's what he needs to try and do. So he's going to get players also in this window that he knows, that he trusts, that he will believe can help him get there quicker. Yeah, that's normal. But in terms of the balance of the squad, in terms of the competition, I don't think that the left fullback position is a priority, because I think, when you start looking at, you got Juranovic could play both sides. Bolingoli, don't know what's happening there. Even Scales, could he potentially play as a left fullback as well?
Greg Taylor can fill in there. Because what you have to remember is in January, Ange is not going to go out and sign another 10 players or 12 players.
No.
He's going to go out and be selective of who he wants to bring in, so he can add in certain areas. So he's not going to go out and say, I'll bring a left back, a right back, 2 midfield players, centre forward and 2 wide men. No, he's probably going to bring in, I would imagine maybe 4 or 5 maximum.
Okay, you think as many as that?
Maximum. Well, he's linked with the 3 Japanese players. So you think out with that, he might think, if I can get another 1 in, another 2 maybe, with a couple of younger ones possibly going on loan, he'll want to just manoeuvre things. He won't want to leave himself short, particularly if they have a good run in the Europa Conference League. He doesn't want to be asking the same players continually to play Thursday, Sunday, 2 internationals Thursday, Sunday, which is what he's done in the first half of the season, because the depth of the squad hasn't been there. Turnbull started every single game for Celtic this season, I think. Rogic had played so much and then got injured. Callum McGregor's had a little niggles and been out. He's been away on international duty. Kyogo has been playing every game, went away on international duty, got injured, come back. So he's now thinking, right, okay, I need to make sure I can protect myself, that if we lose 1 or 2, the same quality of player comes in.
January as well, I believe, is a window for the likes of Australia, Tommy Rogic, Japan, Kyogo.
Because they're fit and they're ready to play.
But in terms of there's international fixtures.
Right, okay. So in that respect,
So again, it's probably not ideal. I don't know what that looks like in terms of those particular games. I know for Australia, they're I'm not saying without being disrespectful to the opponents, it's not the top teams within the group. So there might be a favour that could be called upon.
Is that World Cup? That's not a
World Cup qualifiers.
But it's not an international window, is it?
No, it's not.
And if it's not an international window in the calendar, then the clubs...
They can.
I'm told Kyogo's not going away in January.
No, that was reported. You're right. That was reported. I've not heard the same report for Tommy Rogic at this moment in time.
Right. And what I was talking about there, I guess, was the long game, the Celtic long game, where you're building a team into the future, not just the here and the now. And you do think about the Adam Montgomerys of this world and their development. Yeah. But I guess when you think about it, the here and the now is actually winning this title and bringing in a lot of money.
But it's a balance, Rob. You're right. So again, whether it's fantastic if it's homegrown, because I think that's the improvement and benefit that people in Scotland want to see. Clubs developing their own players, not just stuff. But when you're bringing those foreign players in, which is a lot of the time, Rangers and Celtic are going to do that, as long as they're coming in at that right age. So you talk about Jota, you talk about Abada, even talk about Kyogo. I think he's 26. Right, they're coming at an age, right, where there's still an upside in terms of value, in terms of business, in terms of opportunities for Celtic. First and foremost, do well at that football club. They will make money. And then if you can develop the young Scottish players that are also getting those opportunities within that, that's a perfect case scenario.
But I think your point, Rob, does an offer manager get the opportunity to have a plan? In theory, absolutely. I'll write it down for you and I'll show the board and this is what I'm going to do. But in reality, I've got to win on Thursday night. I've got to win on Sunday. I've got to win next Wednesday. So the theory of we'll drip the young players in and we'll give them 20 minutes here and half an hour there. Yeah. He thinks, I have to win. Yeah. The pressure as an oath for managers, you have to win. And I think if you can get the balance right and you can get young ones in and out, young players always believe if you're good enough and the manager thinks you're good enough and you suit the system and you're showing it every day in training, absolutely, he'll give you a chance. But unfortunately, if there's other players there ahead of you and they're a wee bit older and they're playing better than you, they're going to play because he can't look at that side of it. He has to just think, who's my best player? He can't look at age. Who's my best player? He's playing.
Yeah,
that's
because the reality is that if it doesn't happen for Ange Postecoglou this season, if it's not deemed to be a successful season, then he might not be around to see the development of Adam Montgomery, because it is a brutal business, as we well know. Switching across from Celtic to Rangers, 3-0 for Celtic, 3-0 for Rangers. At the weekend, no change at the top of the Premiership, still 4 points in it. Craig was there at Ibrox watching Rangers. And this was Giovanni van Bronckhorst's take afterwards on the change of thinking about his fullbacks.
I think everyone has to adapt and make sure that we are attacking as a team, and we can see where the spaces are. Today the spaces were more on the side, so I give a lot of freedom to my fullbacks at times when they can go up and join the attack. So especially when today we only played against one striker. I think they have the ability to do so, and then also when one fullback is gone, the other ones have to make sure we are well organized when we lose the ball.
If you're a fullback, if you're James Tavernier,
Yep.
and suddenly you're not spending half your game midway inside the opposition half.
Yeah.
You just adapt. You just look at the big picture.
Yeah, well, I think, look, the enjoyment is still there for the fullback's job in the way that Giovanni wants to play. It's just about arriving at the right time. Pick your moments, and obviously, if one side's further forward, so if it's Barisic had scored, then Tav's got to stay home, and that might mean that he sort of pushes a little bit more centrally into a midfield position, but you're not high and wide where you can be countered, and that was where, as a central defender for Rangers this season, I think extremely vulnerable. A lot of space outside you, 30, 40 metres because of the gaps that were left by the fullbacks bombing on. So again, they will still have the opportunity to get involved in the attacking side of the game, but most importantly, the attacking players, the Kents, the Hadjis, the Roofs, the Sakalas, they're going to be like that. They're going to be delighted because they're also now in positions where they can do what they're best at, getting isolated, 1v1s, running at players, getting penalties, getting free kicks. It's a win-win for both sets, the attacking players and the defenders.
What you would say is, if the manager's going to do that, he'll save each of them about 3K per game in their legs. Yeah. Because they were up and down and up and down. You must be thinking, this is great. You can be more selective, which means you're fresher. You're not just plodding up and down, I've got to go because the manager wants me to go. Can I go? No, it's not. I'll just back the player up. I'll be the one that sits behind the game, as opposed to I'll not be the one caught in no man's land. The goal scored from the position I've left and people point the finger at me. But that should be a recognition of, you can hear Van Bronckhorst saying, one fullback goes, other one tucks in. It also means then that a centre half can go in as tight as he wants because he's got a fullback who can cover him. He's not isolated 1v1. So there's pros and cons for both systems.
I wonder if we'll see Borna Barisic returning soon to his top form, Craig, because he's been a great player for Rangers in his time. He's quality, isn't he? He's a Croatian international. His numbers have been really good, sometimes in European competitions, assists, quality on the delivery and all the rest of it. But he's been a bit in and out this season, in and out of the team, and in and out in terms of his own form as well. Yeah, and look, sometimes you can, for whatever reason, go into a little bit of a rut. Form can drop away. Players need direction also. And again, I think that are you an attacker? Are you a fullback? That in between for me was the situation that he found himself in at Rangers this season. Whereas now there's clear direction, really clear direction. You can get forward, attack and support at the right times, right? But also you've got a defensive job to do. When Tavernier's away, you're in. Yeah. Simple. And I think sometimes players thrive off of that direction and certainty and clarity. And it's what I touched on right at the top of the show. The Dutch make it very, very simple in terms of what they're after, your roles that you play. You know exactly what you're doing. They're so detailed. And I think that the players will be enjoying that. Barisic, I've seen him, it wasn't so much against the Dundee game. I think it might have been against Sparta. The quickest I'd seen him move all season in a defensive manner. I think he still needs to improve, Craigs, on blocking crosses. Yeah, sometimes that becomes a self-doubt because you think, maybe I'm not the quickest, or the player you're playing against is quite quick, so you're wary of getting too tight. Whereas actually you're probably better trying to lock on as quick as you possibly can, because see, once attacking players turn and face you up, that's where they want you. So you want them trying to face your goal as much as you possibly can. If you allow them to face you up and you allow them to put crosses in, that's your responsibility. So you maybe just have to go closer a little bit at times. But if you're noticing that,
and you're saying the manager's so fine with his detail, he'll be noticing that. So he'll be passing the message on to Borna Barisic.
And we'd Rangers fan Scott on, didn't we, early on in the show, saying that he reckons this change of management and a change of philosophy, maybe, about how Rangers play, this could turn things. You know, he thought they were going to win the title anyway. Now he's sure about it. Are you sure about it, Craig?
I'm actually a lot more confident now with the change than I was in terms of the start of the season. I was very confident, but then I've seen Rangers underperforming for many games, Rob. You know, you start talking to getting double figures and a trend of losing goals and having to chase games. And the message from the interview, Tavernier, first away defeat of the season, lack of desire, lack of hunger. Most recent one, Goldson. I was concerned. I think that it then really opened up into what was going to be a fascinating title race. I think Giovanni coming in now has just edged it to me being a lot more confident and comfortable that Rangers can go on with
But
the
also,
job.
I don't think the Rangers fans expected Celtic to be as good as what they are. Irrespective of what Ange's going to do or what he's done, nobody
couldn't have done, could you?
Nobody expected Celtic to be as good as what they are. And I think that's what's caught Rangers cold a little bit.
4 points in it at the top of the Premiership.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Your exclusive taxi trade savings are waiting on you. Let's
Rob McLean with Stephen Craigan and Craig Moore in the studio. What a central defensive partnership we've got here. If we can't get a clean sheet tonight, we're never going to get one, to be perfectly honest. And Craigs, hats off to you for when I asked you about Liam Scales, and in the middle of the Liam Scales answer, you gave us the score update from Paris, which was pretty impressive too. Leo Messi got the third goal there after Kylian Mbappe had scored twice in the first 10 minutes in Paris against Club Bruges. Jack Hendry in that Bruges defence, bruised.
Just means if Jack Hendry's got any kids and he goes home and they say, Dad, how did you get on? Well, we lost 3-0. 3-0? Yeah, but Mbappe scored 2 and Messi scored. Oh, that's okay, Dad, don't worry about it, that's fine.
And the next question was, what about Neymar? Oh, he was injured. Yeah, so 3-0.
Whose jersey did you get? Oh, well, I got Messi's, yeah, fine.
Sounds like good watching at the moment, though. 3-0 for PSG against Club Brugge. And in the other game in that group, Man City are trailing. It's not a phrase you use too often. They're a goal down to RB Leipzig in Germany. Szoboszlai has got the only goal of that game, half-time, 1-0. Talking of Man City, what a title race, Craig Moore, it's going to be in England this season. I mean, it's going to be... it seems as if it's going to be really exciting here and could well go down to the wire. It looks like a 3-horse race in England. Who do you pick of those three? Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City?
Oh, man, it's a tough one. It really is. I went Man United at the start of the season, but I don't think they're going to be good enough, although they're going to improve, I think, under the new setup. And clearly have already shown that early doors. But I've got to go Man City, Rob. You know, I know that Liverpool, in an attacking sense, are unbelievable, and Klopp is they're such a well-oiled machine. He's really got them humming along. Chelsea have been really good under Tuchel, although they have had I think some COVID recently, some issues, some injuries. There's a bit of change for Chelsea. So I've got to go City. I think that under Pep, that they're just in a streak of form where, again, without an out-and-out striker, which is incredible, I think they can go on and win the league again.
Do you know what's incredible? That West Ham are killing them, all of them, because they've beaten all three.
Yep.
And different. I mean, they beat Chelsea at the weekend, didn't they? They beat Liverpool in the Premier League, and they beat Man City in the League Cup.
Yep.
So I think Liverpool and Chelsea will be delighted they're not having to go back to West Ham again. You know, so that just shows they've dropped points when unexpectedly people didn't think they would. But you know, to have three top-class teams, not only, Rob, who's going to win the Premier League out of those three, I think those three will also be favourites for the Champions League. I look around and I don't think, you look at Real Madrid in transition, Barcelona might not even be in the competition if they don't get the right result tomorrow night. Paris Saint-Germain, fine with Messi and Mbappe and Neymar. You know, there was questions and marks about, do they do enough going back the way? You know, defensively, PSG play with 7 players, and attacking wise they play with 3. You know, so it's finding that balance. I just think all three of them are structured enough to win the Premier League and win the Champions League. So, I mean, really at this stage, it's anyone's guess because they're all so strong. They've all dropped points when we didn't expect that they would.
Yep.
But, you know, strength and depth and quality. Liverpool going forward are just a joy to watch. They really are.
Brilliant. But it's only coming out of those. I know what West Ham you touch on, and Moyes has done he's done an incredible job.
Listen, West Ham, but I'm just saying that they're a club who are upsetting the odds. And
massively.
And beating teams,
Yeah. No, he's done an amazing job. But the winners coming out of those three teams.
Yeah. Just looking at the Liverpool team that's lining up in Milan tonight, and much changed would be one description for it. No Andy Robertson, and a lot of the big names are missing tonight, and that's going to be a feature of the European week, of course, because we're into game number 6. It's match day 6 in all the competitions, and quite a lot of dead rubbers around. So clearly, Liverpool, like lots of clubs, are going to be resting their top players.
They're fully entitled to, Rob. They've went out and won. Liverpool, particularly, have won won their first 5 Champions League group games. They can then do what they want after that. Yeah. People talk about the spirit of the competition. I mentioned that earlier. Liverpool have to look after themselves. They can't be going out and flogging players just to try and suit someone else. The other teams had looked after their own games early in the competition. They wouldn't have to worry about what kind of team Liverpool are putting out. So I think they're well within their rights to put out the team that they feel. And saying that, Mane and Salah and Origi and Minamino, Oxlade-Chamberlain, they're all playing in the game.
It's a defence, really. It's a defence that he's
changing.
That's what he's changed.
It was interesting to hear Pep the other day saying, December and January is such busy months with Champions League and league games being squeezed in, Boxing Day before, New Year's Day and all that. And I think he said, I'm down to 14 or 15 players. What he didn't say was, I'm down to 14 or 15 world-class players. I've got 10 world-class players missing, so I think many people would take those 14 or 15 players.
Yeah. If you're Rangers and Celtic this week, Craig, what are you doing with team selection? Obviously, you're gonna make some changes. You're gonna rest some players because everything is sorted in both groups for both teams. But you want to be maintaining momentum, don't you?
Yeah, you're talking about Europe, obviously. Look, I think that both managers will make certain changes, Rob. To give people some rest. Yeah, but also the players that need some minutes, I think, is very important to go and get that opportunity to experience playing, competing, because it's completely different to training. And those players that need some minutes is vital for what lies ahead. A busy schedule coming into Christmas and New Year, and still a big season to play. So there'll be some changes, but not a lot of changes, because you're right. You touch on the momentum there and how important it is to keep that rhythm.
You don't want to get a doing on Thursday, do you?
Nobody wants to get a doing ever, and certainly you don't want to be making a lot of changes, because again, that can affect the rhythm.
However, if he does make the changes, I put it down. Your midfield and forward players of Rangers, for example, because that's what we're talking about first. On Thursday night could be Ryan Jack, John Lundstrom, Bakuna, Scott Wright, Sakala, and Kamal Ruth.
Yep.
That's not bad.
That's guys who need Nathan Patterson to replace James Tavernier, John McLaughlin, Scottish International, 2 Scottish Internationals to replace Alan McGregor. The problem with Rangers is they only have 3 other defenders. They've only got Goldson, Bassey and Barisic, so they're probably going to have to play.
And Bassey has done very, very well coming in as a left-sided central defender. So they're
going to have to play. So people talk about dead rubbers and a game doesn't mean anything. You tell those 7 players who sat on the bench at the weekend that this game doesn't mean anything when they haven't had a chance to go and show the manager what they can do. And Celtic will be the exact same. I think Ange said it himself. He said it funnily, and it was after the game. He said, I've got a bad knee and I'm overweight, but I'd love to play on Thursday night. So that should tell you that whoever is picked to go and play, it's not a case of turn up and go through the motions. You have got, as an individual, a chance to go and show the manager, especially with January around the window, I can be part of your squad. I'm someone you can rely on, you can turn to, you can put on the pitch, because I can play against the Lyon side or I can play against the Real Betis side, and I can influence the game. So the choice is yours, and the manager will see, both managers will see who lives right, who eats right, who trains right, who prepares for that chance. Doesn't come very often sometimes, but when your opportunity comes along, who is ready to take, who's mentally prepared to take it, and I think both managers will learn a lot.
And the manager that has the most players that have exactly that approach, are going to be the ones that are going to go and win the title this season, because that is what's required. The starting 11 players, that's great, but more is needed throughout a season, Rob. And this is, as Craig's explained there, it's a wonderful opportunity for players that haven't had that exposure, that haven't had those minutes, go and play and see in the manager's head.
You see the boys that don't play, Rob, they're the ones that drive your training. They're the ones that make your training good. Because the ones that are playing think, well, I'm playing, or I've been playing. It's the ones who come in and think, well, I'm going to show you, and start up on their training, and then suddenly you're a centre half thinking, well, he's playing well today in training, or you're a winger, he scored 4 goals, I better up my game. So your training schedule and your training tempo and your intensity is driven by players who are not in your first 11 or who haven't been in your first 11 over the past couple of weeks, because they then want to go and show what they can do, particularly under Van Bronckhorst with the new manager coming in. They'll be wanting to really show what they can do. So there's an opportunity, and people always say, I don't get a chance. You get a chance every single day in training. Every morning you wake up, you get a chance. Every day you go to training, you get a chance. Every gym session, you get a chance. So the game is just the end of those chances all coming together, and getting minutes on the pitch is the ultimate.
And that's what Stevie Clarke is continually saying as well, isn't he? About Scotland get-togethers, where it's he always pays tribute to the others who actually didn't get on the pitch, because, as Craig says, they're constantly driving standards in training and playing a massive part.
It's crucial in terms of having that team harmony, in terms of having that ability that you've not been playing to then come in and contribute. It's so important, Rob. You can't win titles, you can't win trophies, you can't qualify for World Cups if you don't have that throughout the squad. It is so important, and you're right in terms of you might not necessarily be playing every game and knocking out all the minutes that you would like, but you can still drive the standards at training, and that is key. And that's why big clubs, big players, they win trophies, because they've normally got a large percentage of those players that fit that character.
Am I right in saying that Kenton Davis didn't start on Saturday?
Yes.
So they could potentially, I know Craig's painted a picture of a team without.
It was a good picture, yeah. But Kenton
Davis, the fact they didn't play at the weekend, would that suggest to you that they will play on Thursday?
Again, I don't know why Kent was completely left out, and I didn't heard anything.
He said after the game it was just to manage their workload.
Okay.
Whether it was just back from a hamstring injury, you thought, it's a game we don't need to risk. I mean, we're home against Dundee. That's not being disrespectful to Dundee, but I'm guessing that's the reason why he done it. He had enough talent to go and win the game, and Stephen Davis at 36 has probably played more minutes this season than what most anticipated. So he sees an opportunity to take him out, let him a few days to recover, because they've got 6 games after Thursday. There's 6 games up until the 2nd of January, and he will want to make sure he's got a fully fit squad. He's not going to risk anybody.
It's a fascinating time, isn't it? Going into these European games, going into the weekend as well. Hearts against Rangers is one that gets you thinking. It may be an acid test for Hearts. It's a massive game for Rangers. Rangers and Celtic at the moment just keep on winning. Some Celtic playing catch up. Usually Rangers have been playing before them. But it's hard to pick at the moment, isn't it? And we've got that transfer window, Craig, not far around the corner, which could change things again.
Well, potentially could change things again for Hearts. In terms of a bit of speculation about Suter and what have you, but look, Hearts have been incredible this season. As another great opportunity for them to test themselves against Rangers. This is no easy game. Rangers will need to be at their very best. That's going to be a real contest, and I expect Celtic just to actually be quite comfortable, if I'm honest. It's a home game against Motherwell, I believe. Craig,
you obviously haven't watched a lot of Motherwell recently, Craig.
or maybe he has.
They've lost 1-5. They've been to Easter Road. Should have beat Hibs at the weekend, to be fair. The amount of chances they created, they should have beat Hibs. They battered Dundee United. They won at Pittodrie. They beat Hearts at home.
Yeah.
So,
but what about Dundee away?
Well, we're all out a bad game, then again. We're out a bad game.
That wasn't the way we wanted to end the show with you hurting Craig's feelings. that really wasn't the way we wanted it all to end. Craig, thanks, and Craig's as well. We're back tomorrow. You knew that anyway. It's going to be Barry Ferguson and John Hartson with myself live at 5.
Where do taxi drivers go when they need to buy a taxi? Well, the Taxi Centre have supplied cars to the trade for over 20 years, and they stock a huge range of motors from the world's leading manufacturers: Skoda, Kia, Toyota, Mercedes, Nissan, Ford, Hyundai, you name it. They've got saloons, MPVs, estates, minibuses, prestige cars, the lot, all under one roof, ready for immediate collection or free delivery anywhere on the mainland UK, with taxi trade exclusive discounts, flexible finance options and no hidden fees. They even throw in registration and 12 months road tax. So if you're a taxi driver who needs a new or used taxi, where would you go? TheTaxiCentre.com. Trade only.